through those who grant pardon for love of you, through those who endure sickness and trial. Happy are those who endure in peace. By you, Most High, they will be crowned. All praise be yours, my Lord, through Sister Death, from whose embrace no mortal can escape. Woe to those who die in mortal sin. Happy those she finds doing your will. A second death can do them no harm. Praise and bless my Lord, and give him thanks, and serve him with great humility.
Hello and welcome to Salt and Light television coverage of Pope Francis's Apostolic voyage to Canada. My name is Matthew Harrison. I'll be your host for today and throughout all this week as the Holy Father comes to Canada and visits as a pilgrimage of penance, as he described it a few weeks ago. Now, the Holy Father, of course, arrived on Sunday to the Edmonton International Airport. That's the first city he'll be visiting. He'll be on to Quebec City later, and then, of course, into Nunavut by the end of the week. When he visited yesterday, there were no speeches. There were no public events, which is a bit rare for the Holy Father when he does come to a new country and when he does visit on his voyages. Now, what did occur, though, was a meeting of numerous dignitaries. There was certainly some beautiful drumming performed by Indigenous elders and by the Indigenous community. As well, he met several dignitaries, from church dignitaries to political. Of course, you would have seen on screen the Prime Minister there, our Governor General as well, Mary Simon. He met several members of leadership of the Indigenous community on Treaty 6, including the Grand Chief of the Confederacy of the Treaty 6 Nations, Chief Greg Desjardins, as well as several elders, Miss Roseanne Archibald, the National Chief of the Assembly of First Nations. He met representatives of the Métis National Council, as well as the Inuit communities as well. So this arrival was really part of the head of state visit. Now, we always think of the Holy Father as making a pastoral visit, and this is, of course, very much a pastoral visit, but he is still the head of state for Vatican City State. So this is what you could consider more the political component of the visit, as he really has this opportunity to greet his political counterparts as well as Indigenous community members. Now, that was it for yesterday. And in fact, the Holy Father then was whisked on to St. Joseph Seminary in Edmonton. It's probably about half an hour, 40 minutes away from the airport. And then he spent the rest of the day resting and in prayer, and just more of a low-key kind of day. As, of course, that trip from Rome, an early morning trip, a 10-hour flight. Now today, he is going to be participating in two very significant events. The first event being in Maskwacis, where there was a residential school, one of the largest residential schools in Canada, in fact, Ermineskin, and we're seeing actually live footage, live images from Maskwacis. That is, in fact, the Maskwa ground. There's an event happening just prior to the Holy Father arriving. There's been some talks from elders, from representatives of the church. There's been dances, there's been drumming, song. There's been really, they've been setting the stage, a bit of a celebration of culture for the arrival of the Holy Father. Now that clip we're seeing was from yesterday, and that is the Holy Father meeting the Grand Chief of the Confederacy of the Treaty 6 First Nations. That's Chief Greg Desjardins. I'm sure we'll be seeing him throughout the rest of this journey. Now, as part of his visit to Maskwacis, he will be going to the cemetery at Ermineskin, and there'll be a moment of prayer. Now, one of the parish at Maskwacis is actually Our Lady of Seven Sorrows. And Solemn Light associate producer Julian Paparella has been on the ground in Alberta with his crew, and they've been looking at some of the sights and sounds, and he gives us this preview piece from Maskwacis on the parish, with the parish priest, with some elders of Our Lady of Seven Sorrows.
We're here in front of the Church of Our Lady of Seven Sorrows here in Maskwacis, Alberta, where Pope Francis will begin his pilgrimage of healing and reconciliation with the Indigenous people here in Canada. We had the opportunity to speak to some of the parishioners, some of the elders, and the pastor of this community. Here's what they had to say.
Everybody has a different experience of this place. I came in 1992 to be a pastoral assistant. Unfortunately, there was a lot of deaths and suicides and loss of hope. And often at wakes there was a struggle from the community as far as often there was blame issues, who to blame. But then after all the years, people weren't blaming each other anymore. They were just looking for hope.
There is a deep underlying hope even in the face of that suffering. Hey? There's a hope that they know that there's a brokenness, that this is not the way it's intended to be. It can be better, it can be more wholesome. And so this is what drives them to come to the Lord.
There was a project that the government had with the residential schools, which happened to be Catholic. The project was to take the Indian out of the child, trying to force us, push us to a point where it destroyed us. I just about lost my language. A lot of words I still sometimes have to go to an elder. I was about 6 years old when they brought me to this school, which is located just about 100 feet away from this building. And at the time when they brought me, I did not speak a word of English. I could see they were taking it out on the kids. And I seen where they slapped one little girl because she could not write a number on the wall. She didn't know how. And she would get slapped till blood squirted. We were all scared stiff. We didn't even dare to twitch. Anybody moved would be the next one. And this, literally, we thought the nun went out of its mind. It was terrible. I've seen kids where the strap was so hard, it left scars on them. When I turned 16, at the time, the law was, you don't have to go be in school, you're on your own. I walked out of school. When my birthday came, I walked away from this place. We lost a lot of loved ones. After school, after they left the school, they become addicts to alcohol, drugs, to forget. Because it left a deep wound, a deep cloud inside you. You want to forget the past. You don't want to remember it. I get kind of emotional talking about it. I just don't want to talk about it. It's that difficult. I myself, what I went through.
There's a beautiful depth of faith here, even again in that midst of suffering. And I think perhaps that suffering has brought about that depth of prayer and spiritual life, and has strengthened them with that and allowed them to carry the weights that they have had to carry over the years. The Indigenous peoples are themselves, culturally speaking, a spiritual people. And so they've been able to embrace the gospel and the life of prayer in a way that we don't always see in some of our more European-centered Catholic parishes. And so there's a beauty here, a simplicity with that faith, but a depth and a beauty that comes out quite wonderfully. And that's always uplifting. Even in the midst of the struggles and the sufferings that they experience, there's a profound yearning for the Lord and a desire to be in communion with Him and that spiritual life. And that is just incredibly beautiful to see.
The catechism was the good part of the school. Learning about our Creator, and you read stories, Bible stories. That's what helped me. I prayed a lot. But I also started looking for the deep roots of my ancestors, the sweat lodges, the ceremonies. I started helping at the Sundance Lodge. I smoked with the elders. They had a pipe, and their prayers, I prayed with them. And I learned a lot from them. And that's what helped me. It was both my cultural beliefs, the ceremonies, and the church. Because we pray to the same God.
In a sense, Grandpa's coming home, and we want to be able to celebrate that special aspect of that wonderful gift that he's coming to us here. I don't think anybody ever thought this would ever happen in our lifetime. Even the non-Catholic people recognize the privilege that this is to receive the Holy Father. And we've had incredible cooperation from the 4 bands here to make this happen. People are looking forward to sharing their culture with pride for the Holy Father, and sharing their artistic expression as well as their faith in all of that. And so that's really exciting.
Not only shake his hand, but give him a hug, and we accept your apology. We thank you very much.
I've come up with this with an openness, to say, okay, Lord, help me to recognize what it is that you're doing. Open my heart, open the hearts of the people to receive what it is that you're doing, the words that you're going to speak to us through our Holy Father. That reconciliation has to take place. There's a sense that the people are trapped in their suffering, and there's no coming out of that imprisonment without reconciliation. And I think the Holy Father understands that, which is why he's coming here, right? In the midst of that suffering. Not a great big gathering somewhere else where it'd be far easier to arrange, but he's coming here. Coming here because there's a former school here. Coming here because this is where the Indigenous people live. That's a big thing, and I think the community has understood that as well. And there is an openness. There's a desire to be reconciled with God, in our own personal lives, and there's desire to be reconciled with the church and with one another. What that's going to look like is something that the community will have to discern prayerfully, but that hope, that underlying desire for that is definitely palpable if you pay attention to it. Even in the midst of people talking about the horrors that they've experienced or they've heard of, they want to bring out that truth precisely so that they can forgive. This is not the culmination of our journey of healing. In a sense, it's a new door, and we have to carry that through after he's gone.
And that was a story followed by Julian Paparella, part of the Salt and Light television crew on the ground in the Edmonton area, journeying along with the Holy Father. Certainly a very powerful story from Maskwacis and the parish there, Our Lady of Seven Sorrows. and really how appropriate it is that it is Our Lady of Seven Sorrows, and this time of reconciliation, and the Holy Father really expressing that solidarity with Indigenous communities throughout Canada, and his sorrow for wrongs that have been done in the past. Now, today in Maskwacis, there are several things that are going to be occurring. One will be a visit to the Ermineskin Cemetery, and where the Holy Father will say some prayers. As well, he'll be going to Masqua Park to meet with some elders. That will be starting probably in a few minutes. The Holy Father is en route, but before he actually does have that public meeting and that public visit to the cemetery, he actually is visiting Our Lady of Seven Sorrows Parish. He's going to have a quiet moment, a private closed meeting, or closed visit, I should say, actually. So it's an opportunity for him to meet with the pastor at Our Lady of Seven Sorrows, who serves the Indigenous communities, as well as with some elders. Now you're seeing visuals right now of the powwow grounds in Masqua, that's Masqua Park, and prior to the Holy Father's arrival, there's been a gathering. It's been a program of approximately an hour of a variety of people. There's been celebration of culture, there's been drumming, there's been dance, there's been speeches and presentations. Archbishop Bolin from Regina has been there, as well as a number of government officials talking about truth and reconciliation, the truth and reconciliation process, and a lot of what has been going on over the last few years. Now, here, as part of this visit, they're expecting about 2,000 guests. Almost all are survivors of the residential or day schools, and of course the elders and knowledge keepers will be accompanying them. And that's in the ring. There's 4,000 guests that could be seated within that ring. Now, right there, we're seeing the Grand Chief, who was, I believe, the first Indigenous representative to meet the Holy Father yesterday. Now, the Holy Father, of course, has a way of ad-libbing, and it is possible that he could go about and tour among the people. We'll see how that goes. The Holy Father will be in a Pope-mobile, of course, as he travels throughout this area, and of course throughout the entire journey. Now, Ermineskin is about an hour away from Edmonton, and it's interesting. The origins of Maskwacis it's a Cree word meaning bare hills. So it was originally named with an English name, and it was changed in the last few years to represent the 4 different First Nations that are in the area, including Louis Bull, Samson, and as well as Ermineskin and Maskwacis, and Montana. Now, we are awaiting the arrival of the Holy Father. It is a very large crowd, as you can see. This is really going to be a very special and solemn meeting. And, as we heard from the preview clip that we had shown a few moments ago, there's really a sense of hope and a sense of an opportunity to start anew. Now, we recognize, and we've been saying this all along in our coverage, that this is very much a journey. This isn't a one-and-done event, so to speak. It is very much something that is going to be ongoing between certainly the Church and the Indigenous communities, as well as the Church and as well as Indigenous communities and all of us, really. We're just seeing a number of Métis sashes, those beautiful scarves that I suppose you could call them. They're used as belts. They're very practical and very much a symbol of Métis, of the Métis heritage and Métis culture. Of course, we have representatives from First Nations. We have representatives from the Métis nations, from Métis settlements and communities. Representatives from our Inuit communities as well. Today, the program will be fairly straightforward. As we mentioned, the Holy Father will be visiting the cemetery. There'll also be an address by Chief Wilton Willie Littlechild, one of the many Indigenous leaders, who's also very, very much involved in bringing Pope Francis to Canada. The Holy Father will give an address, and then there will be an honor song and a recitation of the Our Father in Cree, and then a blessing by Pope Francis, and then a meeting with different elders and leaders. But that's it. That is the event. It will be a very emotional event, I expect, a very powerful event. And it's quite interesting to note that we're entering day 2 of an apostolic voyage. However, we haven't had a public mass. Very often, you have masses anchoring and beginning visits like this. And in this case, it's been a bit more low key. And it's been very much this theme of this pilgrimage of penance that the Holy Father described his visit as 2 weeks ago in his Sunday Angelus, where he asked for prayers. And you know, there was a wonderful a quote from Archbishop Richard Smith, who's been one of the main coordinators. He's the Archbishop of Edmonton. And Archbishop Smith spoke about praying for the shadow of St. Peter to fall upon people, quoting Acts 5, verses 15 to 16, I believe. And so really, he was encouraging people to pray for the journey and to pray for healing. And the idea of, you know, going back to the Acts of the Apostles, when the Holy Father walks by people in that shadow, they would be healed. So the hope is that by this visit, as the Holy Father makes these connections with people, and we can see images here of the Ermineskin Cemetery, as the Holy Father makes these connections, that there will be a moment of healing, there will be an element of healing. So again, prior to the Holy Father's arrival, there is a gathering on the powwow grounds, and very much a celebration of Indigenous culture, conversation about the Truth and Reconciliation Commission and the calls to action, as well as some of the work that the Church is doing. And Ermineskin was the site of it's one of the largest residential schools in Canada. So definitely a very powerful, very difficult moment for many. Of course, we've heard that theme over the days, and definitely mental health providers being on site to provide that support for members of the Indigenous community, residential school survivors, and of course those who have been impacted by that intergenerational trauma. As part of this 1 hour ahead of time, as I had mentioned, Archbishop Donald Bolin of Regina had a conversation with Ted Coincidence, who is a residential school survivor, about the importance of walking together on the road to healing and reconciliation. And also there was a tie-in and a conversation from former National Chief Phil Fontaine in his visit to Rome in 2009, when he met with Pope Benedict XVI. So as we said, as those gathered today at the Powwow grounds, as they await the Holy Father's arrival, the Holy Father is en route. He did visit, or is in the process of visiting, Our Lady of the Seven Sorrows. That's the parish that serves Masquachese, and he's being greeted, of course, by the pastor of that parish, who is Indigenous as well, Father Gary Laboucaine, and you would have seen him in our preview video, and we'll be showing those videos throughout the week on our channels, interspersed in our programming. As well, he'll be meeting with some elders and local parishioners. So that's one thing that struck me from yesterday in the Holy Father's arrival, how animated and how much he really seemed to be engaged once he met with the different dignitaries, and the exchange of gifts, and of course him providing the traditional gift of the rosary, the blessed rosary from the Holy Father. Now, of course, visiting this location, it will be a very solemn moment. So we'll let the picture speak. But what you can expect to see is the Holy Father being met by a hand drummer, and that would be Jerry Saddleback. And he'll be playing and singing in a traditional manner as the Holy Father comes to the entrance of the cemetery. And then he'll pray for a moment of silence. Now, the graveyard does include marked and unmarked graves. And obviously it's going to be a very powerful experience for the Holy Father, and of course for survivors as well. And the faithful are really encouraged to pray along with the Holy Father, to pray for the survivors and those who may have lost their lives or who may be suffering from that trauma. Of course, we see our delegation of Indigenous chiefs. As we mentioned, the Musqueam's area, home to 4 First Nations. This, of course, is Treaty 6 territory. And the 6 First Nations of Louisbourg, Montana, Sampson, Arminskin, and all, of course, being represented. And then there's the Grand Chief of Treaty 6 as well, which we've referred to a few times. And that's essentially, it would be like a group. And that would be Jagmeet Singh, we can see arriving, the leader of the federal NDP, one of the dignitaries on hand. We're expecting many political figures. Again, the Governor General will be on hand. Mark Miller, the Minister of Crown and Indigenous Relations. And now, here is the Holy Father, of course, and there is Jerry Saddleback greeting him as he approaches the cemetery. And that is the Ermine Skin Cemetery that we were just looking at, where there likely would have been residents of former residential school students buried in that cemetery, and others from the community, of course. And that graveyard, like many burial grounds, would include marked and unmarked graves. So it's certainly a very powerful moment, the Holy Father really starting this, I suppose you could say, the pastoral aspect of this visit by visiting the cemetery. The Holy Father will be moving to an area now where one of the buildings stood for the Ermineskin Residential School. And if you were joining us earlier for coverage, you'll notice there were several teepees, and we can see those teepees now. And so this site is marked by 5 teepees. So 4 of those represent the different First Nations in this area, in the Musqueam area, which is Louisville, Sampson, Montana, and Ermineskin First Nations. A 5th teepee is a symbol of the entrance to the school that once stood. But now we actually have this teepee as a sign of the resilience of the Indigenous people, of a symbol and a sign that they will overcome this trauma and these challenges of the residential schools. Now, accompanying and introducing the Pope to leadership of the nations is Archbishop Smith. So the Holy Father has been met by Dr. Wilton Littlechild of the Ermineskin Cree Nation. Randy Ermineskin, the Ermineskin Cree Nation chief. The Holy Father is now headed to Bear Park, or Musco Park. And the Holy Father had stopped to pray at what would have been the entrance of that residential school. Of course, again, those that former site noted by the teepees, and that fifth teepee representing, I suppose you could say, a reclaiming of their culture. And the Holy Father being joined by representatives from the different nations in Maskwacis. We've seen Chief Erwin Bull of the Louis Bull First Nation, Chief Vernon Saddleback, who is the leader of the Samson Cree Nation as well. And now he's traveling towards the powwow grounds. It's a bit of a darker, windy day. A cloudier, windy day, I should say. Now, at the grounds, there will be an address given by the Holy Father, as well as a greeting from Dr. Wilton Littlechild. You also see Chief Randy Urbanskin, who, of course, representing the Urbanskin First Nation. This is, of course, a very important day for our Indigenous brothers and sisters. This might be one of the more powerful events on the Holy Father's agenda. Later today, he'll visit Sacred Heart Parish in downtown Edmonton. This is a First Peoples Parish, they call it. And it was just recently, within the last 2 weeks, rededicated after some repairs from a fire. So I think that between this and the visit to the Sacred Heart, it will be a very, very solemn and moving day for many, Indigenous or non-Indigenous. Now, it's interesting to note the teepees that were on the site of the former Urbanskin Residential School. And just as a symbol of resilience of the Indigenous people. And really throughout this visit, you'll see that peppered within the different kind of elements, different ceremonies. For instance, later in today's event, we'll have the Our Father, and it will be spoken in Cree. So certainly little elements here and there to really capture and to celebrate as well the different components of Indigenous culture and Indigenous tradition. So again, we have the Holy Father. He's been the one prelate we've seen the most in this particular area is Archbishop Richard Smith of the Archdiocese of Edmonton. And of course, the Holy Father has also been joined by the chiefs of the four tribes. Prior to this visit to the cemetery and the Holy Father's arrival, there was an important hour-long program for those in attendance to hear from different representatives, be it government or church, to talk about truth and reconciliation and to help frame the conversation. And as we also said, the Holy Father did visit Our Lady of the Seven Sorrows earlier and met with the pastor, as well as with some elders and some parishioners. And it's interesting, the powwow grounds were very, very lively just half an hour ago, 45 minutes ago. And now it's very solemn, very silent as people eagerly await the arrival of Pope Francis. And of course, a lot of orange that we see, and that orange very much associated with, as a color with reconciliation, and in many places, Orange Shirt Day is recognized as the end of September, which I believe September 30th has become the National Day for Reconciliation. Prime Minister Trudeau is in attendance, along with Mary Simon, the Governor General. There is a familiar face as well. It's the Grand Chief of Treaty 6, the Mayor of Edmonton beside him, Mayor Sohi.
Heading down to my brother Elmer Rattlesnake,
We'll have the holiness just get comfortable up there.
That looks to be Mary Simon there, Governor General. So Musqueam Park, there's about, I believe, 2,000 to 4,000 people expected to be gathering for this, as the Holy Father will be seated. And from what I understand, he's going to be giving his remarks.
Igano tahago obstigoski, ewi matue ho, kikske tena no, kia no tanses mamahta sa teogawa obstigoski. Eksitan gamuagoge, kun gamuino, kaha, eksama, kan gamunawa. Stegoski. Biakwe Tabago. Go, Kyo, Tahina, Sino. Go, Pentagote. Mga big space tabasak. Neto taba. Kuhtawi, Dok 7, Dok 7. Ay, Milita Halhe. Ganyan, Tataske, Hagana. Katawistan, Magsewa, at Suin. Hi. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, our drum song, the drum, and all our drums right across Turtle Island, it is a symbol of the heartbeat of Mother Earth. It's a symbol of the heartbeat of each and every one of us. We have a heartbeat. It represents the heartbeat of all animals and living things. So it is very powerful. It's healing. And again, it is a very special afternoon to be able to witness this and have this very sacred song introduce our visitor. So at this time, we're going to go into what we call a grand entry. We're going to be honoring our chiefs. They will be coming in from the east side will be our current chiefs, and to the south will be our former chiefs. So at this time, we're going to go into a grand entry song, what we call a grand entry song. Aha. Singers, Nigabok. Hiya! Ladies and gentlemen, our chiefs, every nation has an eagle staff. We have our eagle staffs leading our grand entry procession. The eagle staff represents our sovereignty. Our nations are represented by the eagle staffs. The history of our nations are represented with our eagle staffs. At this time, we're going to be coming in and calling in our great chiefs wearing the war bonnets. Our war bonnets are very sacred to us. War bonnets represent leadership of our nation, leadership amongst all our nations. The war bonnet, the eagle bonnet, represents who we are as a nation. So right here we got our Four Nations chiefs coming in at this time. Again, welcome to Musquatchees. We have our four chiefs, our Four Nations chiefs, and also our Grand Chief, Dr. Wilton Littlechild. So ladies and gentlemen, on this side, Sagastedok. Sagastedok is the east. The east represents the sun. The sun gives us light. The sun gives us health. The sun is one of the most powerful things the Creator has given us. As people, as First Nations people, we acknowledge the sun for healing and health. Hiya! So right now we have our former chiefs. We also have Represented here, we have all our chiefs within our territory, Treaty 6 territory, and also visiting chiefs from other First Nations in the war bonnets. Tapoy mga higo kay nice kabek. Tapoy higo, ego makisigaw. Tapin ka kisiya, ego tahanma. Halma mihtatamuin, ego ba, ego tse, ego ba kapnise, kawi may spike. Tapoy, tapin ka siya pingo ek takiam, tapuni tamik. Tapuni tama. Han makiano tansisun niganimia. Hey tawase agiam. Han makipmatsuin no isun niganimia. Kitawasim sinawag. Mina kakyo ko simnog. Mina angge kapeno gustik. Ego takiam tapmuhtin getsik. Han makigoy. Tagagito kagotsik. Hey! Hey! Benatavok Matsuit! Hey, Tanavok! Hanma! Hey, Tabisikagi Tokagwik! Hey, Kota, we have the Westwood! Yama Tehuid! Hey, Soniganimia! Kiam! Hanma! Kainai Sidiwia! Kiam, Tapone, Taba! Kiawego, mesos digaras kamga. Heo kokiam, takat staunena no. Hey, wetna kaya win. Treba tibag na ko ya kota ilak sebato. Hanmok sewat suin. hi, 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 hi. Maybe at this time, ladies and gentlemen, let's give everybody a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. So, ladies and gentlemen, over here, we have our Ogimawak. We also have our Eagle Staffs. The Eagle Staffs represent our warriors. We have to defend our territories. Our warriors have to defend the language. Our warriors have to defend our children, our grandchildren. We have to defend our language. We have to defend our way of life. So these Eagle Staff represent that, and also the War Bonnets, they represent leadership. So at this time, we're going to honor our Eagle Staffs and the War Bonnets, our chiefs, with the flag song.
Actually, you know what? Sorry about that. We'll go.
Hi, hi, hi. Thank you very much there, singers. I'm going to ask you to sing one more song. Okay, do you have the victory song there, singers? Sing us the victory song as we honor. You know, we've been here since time immemorial, and it's 2022, and we still have our way of life. We still have our languages, and we're going to continue on living our way of life. It's only going to get better. This is what we call our victory song here at this time. Aha, we'll have our Eagle Staffs, our chiefs. Aha, name it. Sagwek warriors, where's your war call? Once again, warriors, let's hear your war call in celebration. Sagwek! Sagwek! One more time! Sagwek! Hi, 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 hi. Okay, gentlemen, you can post the Eagle staffs there. We have areas that we're going to post our Eagle staffs, and we'll have all our chiefs come back here. We're going to go into a healing dance here at this time, as soon as we have our Eagle staff situated right around the center pole here. You know, circle, it represents life from the beginning, and it never ends. We're going to continue that journey. So again, the center pole, we have one of our biggest ceremonies where we have what we call the king tree stands in the middle of our lodge, and all of our nation's people come there to show the Creator. And you know, they have to go through a 3-day, 4-day fast where they're going to dance without food and water. But this arbor you see, he represents that lodge. And again, gentlemen, you can make your way up to the front. And all the dignitaries, there is seating in front for you all. Hey, hey.
So that's been Dennis Lightning, who's been providing the commentary on the ground. And we had a series of drum songs, a flag song. There are going to be some dances coming up. That's Chief Desmond Bull of the Louis Bull tribe. We've also got other representatives from the different First Nations, including Chief Randy Erminskin of the Erminskin First Nation, Chief Vernon Saddleback of the Samson Cree Nation. Now that red banner that we're seeing, it's quite significant actually. It is the TRC Memorial Banner. There's currently 4,120 children identified on the Memorial Banner, and it's listed on the National Student Memorial Registry at the for the Truth and Reconciliation. So this registry, it was started as part of TRC work, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. That work, the commission itself formally wrapped in 2015, but of course the calls to action coming out of it, the 94 calls, is still ongoing. The papal visit being one of those, and a papal apology on Canadian soil. But the creation of this banner, it was first national public commemoration to record the names of so many children.
Survivors here, and this is a very historic event, and they wanted to be here, and we're asking everybody if you could just be seated, please, ladies and gentlemen, because people want to watch. I know we have the big screens out there, but we do really want to watch him as he makes his and what he's going to talk about here. Quick. Okay, quickly, everybody, you can clear the area.
So just a little bit of housekeeping, I guess, on the host. But that banner, it was created through a process of traditional Indigenous ceremony at Turtle Lodge, Manitoba. to reflect the strong feeling among a national group of survivors, elders, and knowledge keepers that there's a sacred obligation to remember and honor all the children who never came home from residential schools. So certainly that red banner, very important remembrance and recognition.
Got a couple of gentlemen here, warriors, veterans. They're missing their chairs. Is somebody going to help them out?
And really the
And
host...
everybody make a nice circle. We have people inside the circle. Kind of back up, back up. Everyone back up.
Dennis Lightning, the MC for the event, really providing a bit of a teaching about Indigenous culture and the war bonnets and the eagle staff, and a lot of quite interesting insights into Indigenous culture. So you are watching Pope Francis's visit to Maskwacis, Alberta. This is the first event outside of the arrival at Edmonton Airport. Now, this is the first event of the 6-day program. The Holy Father started today by visiting Our Lady of the Seven Sorrows Parish in Maskwacis, and then went to the cemetery to pray for all those lives who had been lost as part of the residential schools. And there we are, seeing the names in the memorial.
An muksewat suin. Kia tapune tama chik, tapune tama chik. Eugan matapwe. Magam suiteo che tapwe gapeta gote mustahe nanaskuptinan. Tapwe magagagiwe tama suna awao. Tagiwe tama suna awao. Mamos skiup mat suin. Ekta kiam ka kio tipa hoanigo. Kap mohtin geg. Eteo chiga pepa sigoeg. Eteo skutemieg. Binekta Toga Pinagataego, Pinagataganwag, Kawigi Tamago, Wagan Maya, Higo Music, Mamo Taima, Semantok, say what suit. So, ladies and gentlemen, at this time we're going to go to our sacred drum here with our singers. They're going to sing a special song again, and this is what we are going to be calling the healing dance. They'll sing the healing song, and we're going to have our dancers dance within this circle. And this will be all about healing. And the drum is a big part of the healing. It's the heartbeat of Mother Earth. The drum is life. Keep on walking, keep on walking, keep on walking there. Keep on walking. And security, if you want to kneel down up to the side so people can watch. You know, ladies and gentlemen, the number 4 represents the elements, the 4 directions, the 4 stages of life, the 4 living life forms. 4 directions. We have the sun rising from the east. And we also have from the south, we have the Thunderbird. And over on the west side, we have the wind, the oxygen that we breathe. This is the government of Mother Earth. And on the north side, we have Mother Earth. Mother Earth is who we are. Mother Earth is all the plant life. Mother Earth, our mother, is also the mother of all insect life. Mother Earth is also the mother of all animals on the ground, in the water, in the air. Mother Earth, of course, is the mother of all humanity. Mother Earth is who she is. We are the children. We are the people of Mother Earth. Hi, hi. One more time, ladies and gentlemen, let's acknowledge our dancers. Hi, 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 hi. All right, there, dancers, you can find a place out there, and we're gonna go next in our program here.
Your Holiness, Fancy Wapikihu, White Eagle. It's a great honor to welcome you among us. You have traveled a long way to be with us on our land and to walk with us on the path of reconciliation. For this, we honor you and extend to you our most heartfelt welcome. We wish to acknowledge with deep appreciation and gratitude the great personal effort you have made to travel to our land. It is a blessing to receive and host you among us. The vast expanse of land called Kaganatak, Canada, and which the Indigenous peoples refer to as part of Turtle Island, is the traditional homeland for the First Nation, Métis and Inuit peoples. Here in Masquachis, we are on Treaty 6 land, the ancestral territory of the Cree, Dene, Blackfoot, Saulteaux, and Nakota Sioux peoples since time immemorial. My name in Cree is Mahigant Moteo, Wolfwalker, Egwausaugiheu, Golden Eagle. In English, I am known as Wilton Littlechild. I was a student here at the Ermineskin Indian Residential School, which for your visit among us this day represents all the residential schools in our country. Gathered here this morning with the peoples of Masquachis are residential school survivors, chiefs, leaders, elders, knowledge keepers, and youth from First Nations, Métis, and Inuit communities across our land. We feel particularly honored to welcome as well the Governor-General of Canada, Her Excellency Mary Simon, and the Prime Minister, the Right Honourable Justin Trudeau. As a former commissioner As a former commissioner of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, I have heard nearly 7,000 testimonies from former students of residential schools in this country. During the recent visit to your home at the Vatican by a delegation of Indigenous survivors, elders, knowledge keepers, and youth, you also heard of the abuses so many of us have suffered at this and other residential schools. During our time with you, it was clear to us all that you listened deeply and with great compassion to the testimonies that told of the way our languages were suppressed, our culture taken from us, and our spirituality denigrated. Our spirituality denigrated. You have heard the devastation that followed from the way our families were torn apart. The words you spoke to us in response clearly came from the depths of your heart and were, for those who heard them, a source of deep comfort and great encouragement. On that occasion, you expressed your intention to visit with us on our land, and in this way express your strong desire to be close to us. And now, Your Holiness, you have come to our land in response to our invitation and as you promised. You have said that you have come as a pilgrim, seeking to walk together with us on the pathway of truth, justice, healing, reconciliation, and hope. We gladly welcome you to join us on this journey. As you acknowledged in your address to us in Rome, we Indigenous peoples strive always to consider the impact of the present events and deliberations on future generations. In that spirit, we sincerely hope that our encounter this morning and the words you share with us will echo the true healing and real hope throughout many generations to come. Kitatamhin, Your Holiness. Tawao, welcome to our land.
That was Chief Wilton Littlechild addressing Pope Francis. And as he did note in his speech, he was among those as part of the delegation who went to Rome the end of March and beginning of April. And he was very instrumental as well in helping to bring the Holy Father to Canada at this time. We'll now have an address from Pope Francis. I believe translation, the Holy Father will speak.
Señora Gobernadora General, señor Primer Ministro, queridos pueblos indígenas de Masapsis y de esta tierra canadiense, queridos hermanos y hermanas, esperaba que llegara este momento para estar entre ustedes. Desde aquí, desde este lugar tristemente evocativo, quisiera comenzar lo que deseo en mi interior, una peregrinación penitencial. Llego hasta sus tierras nativas para decirles personalmente que estoy dolido, para implorar a Dios el perdón, la sanación y la reconciliación para manifestarles mi cercanía, para rezar con ustedes y por ustedes.
Madam Governor General, Mr. Prime Minister, dear Indigenous peoples of Mascawichis and of this land of Canada, dear brothers and sisters, I have been waiting to come here and be with you. Here, from this place associated with painful memories, I would like to begin what I consider a pilgrimage, a penitential pilgrimage. I have come to your native lands to tell you in person of my sorrow, to implore God's forgiveness, healing, and reconciliation, to express my closeness, and to pray with you and for you.
Recuerdo los encuentros que tuvimos en Roma hace 4 meses. En ese momento me entregaron en prenda 2 pares de mocasines, signo del sufrimiento padecido por los niños indígenas, en particular de los que lamentablemente no volvieron más a casa desde las escuelas residenciales. Me pidieron que devolviera los mocasines cuando llegara a Canadá. Los traje y lo haré al terminar estas palabras. Y quisiera inspirarme precisamente en este símbolo que en los meses pasados reavivó en mí el dolor, la indignación y la vergüenza. El recuerdo de esos niños provoca aflicción y exhorta a actuar para que todos los niños sean tratados con amor, honor y respeto. Pero esos mocasines también nos hablan de un camino, de un recorrido que deseamos hacer juntos. Caminar juntos, rezar juntos, trabajar juntos para que los sufrimientos del pasado dejen el lugar a un futuro de justicia, de sanación y de reconciliación.
I recall the meetings we had in Rome 4 months ago. At that time, I was given 2 pairs of moccasins as a sign of the suffering endured by Indigenous children, especially those who, unfortunately, never came back home from the residential schools. I was asked to return the moccasins when I came to Canada. I brought them, and I will do so at the end of these few words, in which I would like to reflect on this symbol, which over the past few months has kept alive my sense of sorrow, indignation, and shame. The memory of those children is indeed painful. It urges us to work to ensure that every child is treated with love, honor, and respect. At the same time, those moccasins also speak to us of a path to follow, a journey that we desire to make together. We want to walk together, to pray together, and to work together so that the sufferings of the past can lead to a future of justice, healing, and reconciliation.
Y este es el motivo por el que la primera etapa de mi peregrinación entre ustedes se lleva a cabo en esta región que ha visto desde tiempos inmemoriales la presencia de los pueblos indígenas. Es un territorio que nos habla, que nos permite hacer memoria. Hacer memoria, hermanos y hermanas. Ustedes han vivido en esta tierra durante miles de años con estilos de vida que respetaban la misma tierra, heredada de las generaciones pasadas y protegida para las futuras. La trataron como un don del Creador para compartir con los demás y amar con armonía con todo lo que existe, en una viva interconexión entre todos los seres vivos. Así aprendieron a nutrir un sentido de familia, y de comunidad, y desarrollaron vínculos fuertes y entre las generaciones, honrando a los ancianos y cuidando de los pequeños. Cuántas buenas tradiciones y enseñanzas basadas en la atención a los otros y al amor por la verdad, en la valentía y el respeto, en la humildad, en la honestidad, en la sabiduría de vida.
That is why the first part of my pilgrimage among you takes place in this region, which from time immemorial has seen the presence of indigenous peoples. These are lands that speak to us. They enable us to remember. To remember, brothers and sisters. You have lived on these lands for thousands of years, following ways of life that respect the earth, which you received as a legacy from past generations, and are keeping for those yet to come. You have treated it as a sign of the Creator, to be shared with others, and to be cherished in harmony with all that exists, in profound fellowship with all living beings. In this way, you learn to foster a sense of family and community, and to build solid bonds between generations, honoring your elders and caring for your little ones. A treasury of sound customs and teachings, centered on concern for others, truthfulness, courage and respect, humility, honesty, and practical wisdom.
Pero si estos fueron los primeros pasos dados en estos territorios, la memoria nos lleva tristemente a los sucesivos. El lugar en el que nos encontramos hace resonar en mí un grito de dolor, un clamor sofocado que me acompañó durante estos meses. Pienso en el drama sufrido por tantos de ustedes, por sus familias, por sus comunidades, en lo que ustedes compartieron conmigo sobre los sufrimientos padecidos en las escuelas residenciales. Son traumas que en cierto modo reviven cada vez que se recuerdan, y soy consciente de que también nuestro encuentro de hoy puede despertar recuerdos y heridas, y que muchos de ustedes podrían sentirse mal mientras yo hablo. Pero es justo hacer memoria, porque el olvido lleva a la indiferencia. Y como se ha dicho, lo opuesto al amor no es tanto el odio, es la indiferencia. Lo opuesto a la vida no es la muerte, es la indiferencia a la vida o a la muerte. Hacer memoria de las devastadoras experiencias que ocurrieron en estas escuelas residenciales nos golpea, nos indigna, nos entristece, pero es necesario.
Yet, if those were the first steps taken in these lands, the path of remembrance leads us sadly to those that followed. The place where we are gathered renews within me the deep sense of pain and remorse that I have felt in these past months. I think back on the tragic situations that so many of you, your families, and your communities have known, of what you shared with me about the suffering you endured in the residential schools. These are traumas that are in some way reawakened whenever the subject comes up. I realize too that our meeting today can bring back old memories and hurts, and that many of you may feel uncomfortable even as I speak. Yet, it is right to remember, because forgetfulness leads to indifference. And, as has been said, the opposite of love is not hatred, it's indifference. And the opposite of life is not death, it's indifference. To remember the devastating experiences that took place in the residential schools hurts, angers, causes pain, and yet it is necessary.
Es necesario recordar cómo las políticas de asimilación y desvinculación, que también incluían el sistema de las escuelas residenciales, fueron nefastas para la gente de estas tierras. Cuando los colonos europeos llegaron aquí por primera vez, hubo una gran oportunidad de desarrollar un encuentro fecundo entre las culturas, las tradiciones y la espiritualidad. Pero en gran parte esto no sucedió. Y me vuelve a la mente lo que ustedes me contaron, de cómo las políticas de asimilación terminaron por marginar sistemáticamente a los pueblos indígenas, de cómo también por medio del sistema de escuelas residenciales sus lenguas, sus culturas fueron denigradas y suprimidas, y de cómo los niños sufrieron abusos físicos y verbales, psicológicos y espirituales, de cómo se los llevaron de sus casas cuando eran chiquitos y de cómo esto marcó de manera indeleble la relación entre padres e hijos, entre abuelos y nietos.
It is necessary to remember how the policies of assimilation and enfranchisement, which also included the residential school system, were devastating for the peoples of these lands. When the European colonists first arrived here, there was a great opportunity to bring about a fruitful encounter between cultures, traditions, and forms of spirituality. Yet, for the most part, that did not happen. Again, I think back on the stories you told, how the policies of assimilation ended up systematically marginalizing the indigenous peoples. How also through the system of residential schools, your languages and cultures were denigrated and suppressed. How children suffered physical, verbal, psychological, and spiritual abuse. How they were taken away from their homes at a young age, and how that indelibly affected relationships between parents and children, grandparents and grandchildren.
Les agradezco por haber hecho que todo esto entrara en mi corazón, por haber expresado el peso que llevaban dentro, por haber compartido conmigo esta memoria sangrante. Y hoy estoy aquí en esta tierra que junto a una memoria antigua custodia las cicatrices de heridas todavía abiertas. Me encuentro entre ustedes porque el primer paso de esta peregrinación penitencial es el de renovar mi pedido de perdón y decirles de todo corazón que estoy profundamente dolido. Pido perdón por la manera en la que lamentablemente muchos cristianos adoptaron la mentalidad colonialista de las potencias que oprimieron a los pueblos indígenas. Estoy dolido. Pido perdón en particular por el modo en que muchos miembros de la Iglesia y de las comunidades religiosas cooperaron, también por medio de la indiferencia, en esos proyectos de destrucción cultural y asimilaron forzada de los gobiernos de la época que finalizaron en el sistema de las escuelas residenciales.
I thank you for making me appreciate this, for telling me about the heavy burdens that you still bear, for sharing with me these bitter memories. Today, I am here in this land that, along with its ancient memories, preserves the scars of still open wounds. I am here because the first step of my penitential pilgrimage among you is that of again asking forgiveness, of telling you once more that I am deeply sorry. Sorry for the ways in which, regrettably, many Christians supported the colonizing mentality of the powers that oppress the indigenous peoples. I am sorry. I ask forgiveness. I ask forgiveness, in particular, for the ways in which many members of the church and of religious communities cooperated, not least through their indifference, in projects of cultural destruction and forced assimilation promoted by the governments of that time, which culminated in the system of residential schools.
Aunque la caridad cristiana haya estado presente y existan no pocos ejemplares de entrega por los niños, con todo, las consecuencias globales de las políticas ligadas a las escuelas residenciales han sido catastróficas. Lo que la fe cristiana nos dice es que fue un error devastador, incompatible con el Evangelio de Jesucristo. Duele saber que ese terreno compacto de valores, lengua y cultura que confirió a sus pueblos un sentido genuino de identidad, duele saber que haya sido erosionado y que ustedes siguen pagando los efectos. Frente a este mal que indigna, la Iglesia se arrodilla ante Dios y le implora perdón por los pecados de sus hijos. Quisiera repetir con vergüenza y claridad: pido perdón humildemente por el mal que tantos cristianos cometieron contra los pueblos indígenas.
Although Christian charity was not absent, and there were many outstanding instances of devotion and care for children, the overall effects of the policies linked to the residential schools were catastrophic. What our Christian faith tells us is that this was a disastrous error, incompatible with the gospel of Jesus Christ. It is painful to think of how the firm soil of values, language, and culture that made up the authentic identity of your peoples was eroded, and that you have continued to pay the price for this. In the face of this deplorable evil, the Church kneels before God and implores His forgiveness for the sins of her children. I myself wish to reaffirm this with shame and unambiguously. I humbly beg forgiveness for the evil committed by so many Christians against the indigenous peoples.
Queridos hermanos y hermanas, muchos de ustedes y de sus representantes han afirmado que las disculpas no son un punto de llegada. Concuerdo perfectamente. Constituyen solo el primer paso, el punto de partida. También soy consciente que mirando hacia el pasado nunca será suficiente lo que se haga para pedir perdón y buscar reparar el daño causado, y mirando hacia el futuro nunca será poco lo que se haga para generar una cultura capaz de evitar que estas situaciones no solo no se repitan, sino que no encuentren espacios. Una parte importante de este proceso es hacer una seria búsqueda de la verdad acerca del pasado y ayudar a los supervivientes de las escuelas residenciales a realizar procesos de sanación por los traumas sufridos.
Dear brothers and sisters, many of you and your representatives have stated that begging pardon is not the end of the matter. I fully agree. That is only the first step, the starting point. I also recognize that looking to the past, no effort to beg pardon and to seek to repair the harm done will ever be sufficient. And that looking ahead to the future, no effort must be spared to create a culture able to prevent such situations from happening. An important part of this process will be to conduct a serious investigation into the facts of what took place in the past and to assist the survivors of the residential schools to experience healing from the traumas they suffered.
Rezo y espero que los cristianos y la sociedad de esta tierra crezcan en la capacidad de acoger y respetar la identidad y la experiencia de los pueblos indígenas. Espero que se encuentren caminos concretos para conocerlos y valorarlos, aprendiendo a caminar todos juntos. Por mi parte, seguiré animando el compromiso de todos los católicos respecto a los pueblos indígenas. Lo hice en otras ocasiones y en varios lugares a través de encuentros y llamamientos, y también por medio de una exhortación apostólica. Sé que todo esto requiere tiempo y paciencia. Se trata de procesos que tienen que entrar en los corazones, y mi presencia aquí y el compromiso de los obispos canadienses son testimonio de la voluntad de avanzar por este camino.
I trust and pray that Christians and civil society in this land may grow in the ability to accept and respect the identity and the experience of the Indigenous peoples. It is my hope that concrete ways can be found to make those peoples better known and esteemed, so that all may learn to walk together. For my part, I will continue to encourage the efforts of all Catholics to support the Indigenous peoples. I have done so at various times and occasions through meetings, appeals, and also through the writing of an apostolic exhortation. I realize that all this will require time and patience. We are speaking of processes that must penetrate hearts. My presence here and the commitment of the Canadian bishops are a testimony to our will to persevere on this path.
Queridos amigos, esta peregrinación se extiende durante algunos días y llegará a lugares distantes entre sí. Sin embargo, no me permitirá responder a muchas invitaciones y visitar centros como Kamloops, Winnipeg, varios lugares de Saskatchewan, en Yukon y en los territorios del noroeste. Aunque esto no es posible, sepan que están todos en mi recuerdo y en mi oración. Sepan que conozco el sufrimiento, los traumas y los desafíos de los pueblos indígenas en todas las regiones de este país. Las palabras que pronunciaré a lo largo de este camino penitencial están dirigidas a todas las comunidades y a los indígenas que abrazo de corazón.
Dear friends, this pilgrimage is taking place over several days and in places far distant from one another. Even so, it will not allow me to accept the many invitations I have received to visit centers like Kamloops, Winnipeg, and various places in Saskatchewan, Yukon, and the Northwest Territories. Nonetheless, please know that all of you are in my thoughts and in my prayer. Know that I am aware of the sufferings and traumas, the difficulties and challenges experienced by the Indigenous peoples in every region of this country. The words that I speak throughout this penitential journey are meant for every Native community and person. I embrace all of you with affection.
En esta primera etapa quise hacer espacio a la memoria. Hoy estoy aquí para recordar el pasado, para llorar con ustedes, para mirar la tierra en silencio, para rezar junto a las tumbas. Dejemos que el silencio nos ayude a todos a interiorizar el dolor. Silencio y oración. Ante el mal, recemos al Señor del bien. Ante la muerte, recemos al Dios de la vida. Nuestro Señor Jesucristo hizo de un sepulcro la última estación de la esperanza ante la cual se habían desvanecido todos los sueños y solo quedaban el llanto y el dolor y la resignación. Hizo de un sepulcro el lugar del renacimiento, de la resurrección, donde comenzó una historia de vida nueva y de reconciliación universal. No bastan nuestros esfuerzos para sanar y reconciliar. Es necesaria su gracia, es necesaria la sabiduría afable y fuerte del Espíritu, la ternura del Consolador. Que Él colme las esperanzas de los corazones, que Él nos tome de la mano, que Él nos haga caminar juntos.
On this first step of my journey, I have wanted to make space for memory. Here today, I am with you to recall the past, to grieve with you, to bow our heads together in silence, and to pray before the graves. Let us allow these moments of silence to help us interiorize our pain, silence, and prayer. In the face of evil, we pray to the Lord of goodness. In the face of death, we pray to the God of life. Our Lord Jesus Christ took a grave which seemed the burial place of every hope and dream, leaving behind only sorrow, pain, and resignation, and made it a place of rebirth and resurrection, the beginning of a history of new life and universal reconciliation. Our own efforts are not enough to achieve healing and reconciliation. We need God's grace. We need the quiet and powerful wisdom of the Spirit, the tender love of the Comforter. May He bring to fulfillment the deepest expectations of our hearts. May He guide our steps, take us by the hand, and enable us to advance together on our journey.
Father's remarks, he said, in reference to the meeting in Rome at the end of March and beginning of April, that he was given 2 pairs of moccasins as a sign of the suffering endured by Indigenous children. And now he's returning these moccasins. The moccasins were given by Chief May Daywalker Patching, and that is the chief in red who has received the moccasins back. She is the chief of the Okanese First Nation, which is located in Saskatchewan.
Stood up and was able to come and not only say I'm sorry, but went one step further and provided some form of, asking for forgiveness, but at the same time moving forward and doing things for those people and succeeding generations of those people. So it's with that we sing this song again for those children and for our great leader and Pope.
The Holy Father being presented with a war bonnet from Dr. Wilton Littlechild, who addressed him at the beginning of this event, as well being provided with a drum. As we've heard throughout the last 2 days, the importance of the drum to Indigenous people, and that being a heartbeat.
na magagi ko kiskita migni na kitche gebas Christian sa kakaditse te pili besok utaga maske muna kuta kipitse gatu da suni kagitu da sun kinawa suna wa kitu gebawa weska da swista basuk ikose hi
During the Holy Father's remarks, a different approach was taken. Often he speaks in Spanish, and there might be translation provided by another source. But it was, I guess you'd say, a consecutive translation. That was Father Marcel Caron of Quebec City, who is a member of the Pius X Secular Institute, and he's, of course, providing support to the Holy Father throughout this trip in terms of the providing translation. Now, the Holy Father is meeting some elders as a dance is underway, a jingle dance you can hear. Traditional dance done at powwows by Indigenous women. So the First Nation chiefs on stage are the representative of the nations and Musqueam's, which would include the Sampson First Nation Chief Vernon Saddleback, the Louis Bull First Nation Chief Desmond Bull, the Ermineskin Cree First Nation Chief Randy Ermineskin, as well as the Montana First Nation, which I believe the chief is Chief Leonard standing on the road. And he is, or they are now, I think, to introduce some elders, representative of the different nations, as there is the exchange of gifts. This is similar to what we saw at the airport, at the Edmonton International Airport a few days, yesterday. Very emotional words from the Holy Father. Certainly in his remarks, beginning with the reference to the moccasins, which were brought to him from the Rome delegation by Dr. May, by Chief May, and the fact that he's had the last few months to sit with them, to pray, and to contemplate all that has occurred, and then to bring them back to her. Certainly very powerful moment. And then, of course, that conversation, the comments, very much recounting the wrongs that have been done. And noting that one new piece coming out of this, he reiterated the apology, of course, which was expected, and he said, "Today I am here in this land that, along with its ancient memories, preserves the scars of still open wounds. I am here because the first step of my penitential pilgrimage among you is that again of asking forgiveness, of telling you once more that I am deeply sorry. Sorry for the ways in which regrettably many Christians supported the colonizing mentality of the powers and oppressed the Indigenous peoples. I am sorry. I ask forgiveness in particular for the ways in which the members of the Church and of religious communities cooperated, not least through their indifference in projects of cultural destruction and forced assimilation promoted by the governments of that time, which culminated in the system of residential schools." Holy Father also spoke about the importance of remembering that. He recognized that some of the things that he's going to be saying will bring back memories. However, he talked about the importance of remembering this and of not being indifferent, because he noted forgetfulness leads to indifference. So he spoke very much about remembering and to work through this and to start a new part of the journey. And that was certainly one of the themes in his remarks as well, talking about journeying together. And towards the end of his remarks, he said, "Dear brothers and sisters, many of you and your representatives have stated that begging pardon is not the end of the matter. I fully agree. That is only the first step and starting point." And then, as part of those comments, he also shared a piece of information which is somewhat new thus far in terms of this journey. And he said an important part of this process will be to conduct a serious investigation into the facts that took place in the past and to assist the survivors of the residential schools to experience healing from the traumas they suffered. So definitely there had been requests from Indigenous communities about investigation. There's been ongoing comments regarding releasing of records and things like that. And so the Holy Father talking about the importance of an investigation, and added later on that his presence here in Canada and the commitment of the Canadian bishops are a testimony to our will to persevere on this path. The Holy Father also reiterated that he has received invitations from many other locations within Canada, in Kamloops, Winnipeg, Saskatchewan, the Yukon, Northwest Territories, but he is unable to be with them. However, they are in his thoughts and prayers. Now, a variety of Indigenous elders and knowledge keepers are meeting the Holy Father now. You can see a very colorful dress, the ribbon dress, very much a traditional Indigenous garb. Each color of that ribbon has a significance to the wearer, and it tells a story for each person and their own personal story. As well, we saw earlier today during the drum song, the variety of songs that were performed by the drummers, a flag song. They also, at that time, during the drumming, had the movement of people holding a banner. This was a banner of over 4,100 Indigenous children in remembrance of them. And it was the color red. Now,
if I could have your attention, if I could kindly have your attention. I know everyone is anxious to be near the Holy Father, but we have some elders that were invited to participate, to offer the Holy Father gifts on behalf of all the survivors. And so we're just concerned about safety. It's pretty tight up here at the stage. If we could just get people to move back just a little bit for everyone's safety. This is a safety issue now, huh? So please respect. We have survivors that are seated who are anxious as well to watch this event and to appreciate this.
There are a few thousand people in on the powwow grounds, and of course everyone eager to get a closer look of the Holy Father. Now a stole being placed on the Holy Father, that color of orange, a color very much again connected with reconciliation.
We partner our prayer on the prayer of Christ our Lord, and say, Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Your kingdom come, with the will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we forgive us who trespass against us, and lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. The Lord be with you. Blessed by the name of the Lord. Our help is in the name of the Lord. May Almighty God bless you, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
And the Holy Father, of course, reciting our Lord's Prayer, the Our Father, and providing the blessing, which I believe is the conclusion of the formal ceremony. Holy Father again greeting the different chiefs, Chief Desmond Bull, Chief Randy Erminson. That's the four chiefs of the four nations that are in the Masquachese area: Sampson First Nation, Montana First Nation, Minskin First Nation, Louis Bow First Nation.
Guys na to tagaw yan di sago tune ko siswas kitas kam ano skagi saga minan bahwes kanim na binatahtogi sagagi kaya saga sinamawaya ke kagi mai to tago ya ke exwis ka sinamaunan kagi pe mai to tama siskem na saga tamat smam tune tama ikatin namaunan amata preksi. Amen.
That was Elder Alec Piche. He was praying the Our Father in Cree. Now, it is interesting to note the stole that was given to the Holy Father. It looked from the angle I saw there that there was Our Lady of Guadalupe on it. Of course, the Our Lady of Guadalupe circle. There's an Indigenous circle here in Canada that's committed to considering reconciliation, considering Indigenous culture, and with of course established through the church. These are powwow grounds, traditional powwow grounds, so we see multiple dances, the Jingle dance occurring as well. There'll be drumming throughout, and as we had noted that there was, prior to this, several different cultural activities and commentaries and speeches prior to the Holy Father's arrival. Of course, it's been a very eventful day thus far in Masquachese. Certainly, we had the Holy Father visiting the local parish, meeting with elders. We had the Holy Father visiting the Ermineskin Cemetery, where there would be marked and unmarked graves, and of course taking a moment to pray for the souls there, and then visiting the site of the former Ermineskin residential school that was represented now with 5 teepees, 4 representing the 4 First Nations of that area, and then 1 marking the entrance to that residential school site, the former residential school site, and the fact that it was a testament to the resiliency of the Indigenous people. And that we did hear throughout, as the Holy Father was welcomed, part of the different drumming songs and talking about the importance of language and culture and tradition, and the discussion of the eagle staff, and the discussion about the war bonnet. and which the First Nation chiefs wear, which was also presented to the Holy Father towards the conclusion of the event by Dr. Wilton Littlechild, who did welcome the Holy Father. As he had been welcomed by the Holy Father, he was, of course, one of the representatives of the delegation that went to Rome at the end of March and the beginning of April. And he was, of course, instrumental in helping to bring the Holy Father here to Canada. He's very much part of this event. And then, of course, the Holy Father with very humble words, asking once again forgiveness and pledging to continue walking together, as is the theme of this visit, and again reiterating also the theme that his pilgrimage of penance. So a very moving moment, certainly very moving remarks. You could see by those in attendance, elders and family members and leadership of Indigenous communities being very moved by what the Holy Father was saying. Now, this is not the last event for the day. There will still be an event at Sacred Heart Parish in Edmonton, and this is the First Peoples Parish. So I expect we'll see a similar kind of theme in any kind of remarks, as well as we'll see a lot of elders and a lot of greetings that the Holy Father is making, these one-on-one connections, and that was, I think, part of the goal is to have those connections with the Indigenous community and to show the sorrow that is certainly being expressed by the Church at this point. Just want to remind you about a few things. So if you're wondering about our broadcast schedule, because we will be providing coverage in French as well, and in terms of the next event, please visit our website, slmedia.org. You can also read the Holy Father's remarks. We'll be posting those on the blog, slmedia.org/blog. Any of the public remarks that the Holy Father provides, the written statements, we'll be posting them there as well. And also on the site you can watch our documentary in preparation for the papal trip, Walking Together. And again, if you're not as familiar about the situation with residential schools in Canada, I do encourage you to take the time to watch that. It really does help to frame the story, and it will help you better understand where this journey is coming from and the importance and significance of this journey. So for now, that wraps our coverage in Maskwacis, Alberta, and we'll be back later in the day with coverage from downtown Edmonton at the Sacred Heart Parish. So I want to thank you for joining us on behalf of all of us here at Salt and Light Television. I'm Matthew Harrison. Thank you, and God bless.